The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the Zephyrian dreadnought Cosmic Dominion. Admiral Vexitar's 4 eyes focused on the main display, his scaled hands gripping the command chair. 3 unknown ships had appeared at the edge of their patrol zone, and they looked nothing like any vessel in the Imperial database. Analysis, Vexitar commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 17 star systems. Primitive construction, Admiral, reported his sensor officer. Metal hulls, basic fusion drives, their weapons appear to be kinetic projectiles. The officer's tone suggested he found this almost amusing. Vexitar studied the images. The ships were small, maybe a tenth the size of his smallest escort vessel. Their hulls were gray and functional, without the elegant curves and energy fields that marked civilized spacecraft. They looked more like the cargo haulers used by primitive species who had barely discovered space travel. On the human ship Soul's Pride, Captain Tayman was having a very different reaction to first contact. He stood on the bridge wearing a comfortable uniform that looked more like work clothes than military dress. Around him, his crew went about their duties with the relaxed efficiency of people who enjoyed their jobs. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," said Ji-hoon from the communications station. "It's in multiple languages. Sounds like a surrender demand." Navigator Bo Ram looked up from her charts. "Already? We haven't even said hello yet." Tayman smiled. "Put it on speakers, Ji-hoon." The Imperial message filled the bridge with its formal tone. "Unknown vessels, you have entered territory claimed by the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. Surrender immediately or face the consequences. Lower your shields, power down your weapons, and prepare to be boarded." The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Weapons Officer Hyunwoo started chuckling. "Shields? What shields?" Engineer Daeun grinned from her station. "I love how they assume we have the same technology they do." Taemin keyed the communications system. "This is Captain Taemin of the Earth vessel Soul's Pride. Thanks for the warning about your territory. We'll keep that in mind." He paused, still smiling. "Is there anything else we can help you with today?" On the Cosmic Dominion, Admiral Vexitar stared at his communications officer. "Did they just dismiss our surrender demand?" "Yes, Admiral. They seem remarkably calm for a species facing the might of the Empire." Vexitar activated his personal scanner to study the human ships more closely. The readings made no sense. These vessels showed no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no gravitic drives. They were using technology the Empire had abandoned thousands of years ago. Yet the humans aboard them seemed completely unconcerned about facing a fleet that could destroy planets. Back on Soul's Pride, Ji-hoon accidentally left the communication channel open while the crew discussed their situation. "Look at all those pretty lights on their ships," said Boram, pointing at the Imperial vessels on their main screen. "Very flashy. Probably uses a lot of power," Daeun observed. "I bet their energy bills are terrible." Hyunwoo was studying the tactical display. "Those weapons look impressive, very advanced. Probably took them years to design all those glowing bits." "Good thing we kept it simple," Taemin said. "Sometimes the old ways work just fine." On the Imperial flagship, the bridge crew listened to this exchange in growing confusion. The humans were discussing their technology like they were comparing household appliances. There was no fear, no awe at the superior Imperial technology. If anything, they seemed mildly interested, like tourists looking at an unusual building. "Admiral," said the communications officer, "I don't think they understand the situation." Vexitar's tail twitched with irritation. "Then we will educate them. Are there other human vessels in the area?" "2 more ships, Admiral. Similar design and technology level. They're maintaining formation but not taking any aggressive actions." The other human ships were the Busan Thunder, commanded by Captain Minho, and the Incheon Surprise with Captain Dongwoo at the helm. Like Soul's Pride, they carried crews who treated their work with professional competence and good humor. On Busan Thunder, physicist Su Jin was practically bouncing with excitement as she studied the Imperial ships. "Look at those energy readings. They're using some kind of plasma containment system. The power output is incredible." "Pretty," agreed Gunner Yoonji. But what do they actually do with all that energy? Tactical Officer Wu Jin was running calculations on his display. Looks like they're designed to fight other ships with similar technology. Energy weapons, force fields, that sort of thing. Captain Minho nodded thoughtfully. Makes sense. When everyone uses the same tools, you optimize for those tools. He opened a channel to the other human ships. Tai Min, Dongwu, what do you think? They seem very proud of their technology, Taemin replied. Very advanced, very expensive looking. Probably. Works great against other ships like theirs, added Dongwu. Question is, what happens when they meet something different? Admiral Vextar was growing impatient. These primitive humans were treating first contact with the Empire like a casual conversation between merchants. They showed no proper respect. For Imperial authority, no fear of Imperial power. It was time to remind them of their place in the Galactic Order. Open a channel, he commanded. All frequencies. This is Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender immediately. This is your final warning. We have the power to destroy your vessels without effort. Your primitive technology cannot stand against the might of the Empire. The response came from Captain Minho. That's very impressive, Admiral. Your ships certainly look powerful. Mind if we ask what you're planning to do with all that firepower? Vextar's eyes widened. We will use it to destroy you if you do not comply. Right, but why? This came from Captain Dongwu. We're just passing through. We're not bothering anyone. Seems like a waste of energy to blow up peaceful travelers. You have entered Imperial space without permission. Did we? Captain Taemin's voice joined the conversation. Sorry about that. Space is big and we're still learning the local traffic laws. Where should we go to apply for a permit? The Imperial bridge crew exchanged glances. In their long history of conquest, they had never encountered a species that responded to threats with bureaucratic questions. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. There are no permits for primitives, Vextar declared. You will surrender or be destroyed. A long pause followed. Then, from the human ships, came a sound the Empire had never heard during first contact negotiations. Laughter. Not hysterical fear laughter, but genuine amusement. As if the humans found something genuinely funny about the situation. Admiral, Ji-hoon said, still chuckling. With respect, has this approach worked well for you in the past? Because it seems like you might be missing out on some interesting conversations. Admiral Vextar had enough of the humans' casual attitude. These primitives needed to understand the reality of their situation. He turned to his weapons officer, a veteran of dozens of campaigns. Target the lead vessel. Fire a demonstration. Shot. Miss them by 50 meters. Show them what Imperial plasma can do. Yes, Admiral. The Cosmic Dominion's main plasma cannon charged with a deep hum that vibrated through the ship's hull. Energy readings spiked across every display as the weapon drew power from the ship's main reactor. A brilliant blue-white bolt erupted from the cannon, streaking through space toward the human formation. The plasma blast passed close enough to Sol's Pride to light up the ship's hull with reflected energy. The bolt continued into empty space, where it finally dissipated in a spectacular display of colors and radiation. On the Imperial bridge, officers nodded with satisfaction. That demonstration had enough power to vaporize a small moon. Surely, the humans would now understand their position. The response from Captain Taemin was not what they expected. Wow, that was beautiful. Did everyone see that? His voice carried genuine appreciation. The energy dispersion pattern was incredible. From Busan Thunder, physicist Su Jin's excited voice joined the conversation. The color spectrum was amazing. That plasma containment must be incredibly sophisticated. Can you do it again? Admiral Vextar stared at his communications display. Did they just ask for an encore? His sensor officer checked the readings twice before reporting. Admiral, there's no change in their behavior. No evasive maneuvers, no weapons charging, no shield activation. They're just watching. On Busan Thunder, Captain Minho was indeed watching with interest. His crew had gathered around the main display, studying the Imperial ships like they were at a science demonstration. "That's some impressive technology," he said to his tactical officer, Wu Jin. "Very advanced energy manipulation. Must take enormous amounts of power," Wu Jin replied, running calculations. "I'm reading massive energy signatures from their reactor systems." Gunner Yunji raised her hand like a student in class. "Captain, can I ask them a question?" "Go ahead, Yunji." She activated the communication system with nervous excitement. "Excuse me, Admiral? That was really cool. How much energy does a shot like that take? Our physicist is really curious about your plasma containment methods." Vextar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. In his entire military career, no enemy had ever asked for technical specifications during a battle. "You want to know about our weapons?" "Well, yes," Yunji replied. "We're always interested in learning new things. That's how we got to space, in the first place." The Admiral looked around his bridge. His officers seemed as confused as he was. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Fear, surrender, occasionally desperate resistance. These were normal responses. Curiosity and scientific interest were not on the list. "These are weapons of war," Vextar declared. "They are meant to inspire terror, not academic discussion." "Oh," said Captain Minho's voice. "Well, they're certainly impressive. Our kids would love the fireworks. Mind if we return the favor? Show you a bit of our technology?" Before the Admiral could respond, a simple projectile launched from Busan Thunder. No energy signature, no exotic particles, just a piece of tungsten steel about the size of a telephone pole with a basic guidance system and a lot of velocity. The Imperial sensors barely detected it. Their systems were designed to track energy, weapons, plasma bolts, and guided missiles with active electronics. A simple metal rod moving very fast hardly registered as a threat. It punched through the cosmic dominion's shields without slowing down, the energy barriers that could stop planet cracking. Plasma bolts simply ignored the kinetic projectile. It passed through the outer hull, through 3 decks, through the inner hull and out the other side, leaving a perfectly round hole. Emergency alarms screamed across the Imperial flagship. Damage control teams rushed to seal the breach while officers stared at their displays in shock. "What happened?" Vextar demanded. "Kinetic impact, Admiral," his damage control officer reported. "A simple projectile, no energy signature, no explosives. It just went right through us." "Impossible. Our shields can stop anything." "Apparently not that, sir." From the human ships came more of that inexplicable laughter. Then Yunji's voice, sounding apologetic. "Sorry about that. Was I supposed to aim for something specific? Your ship has so many glowing bits. I wasn't sure which ones were important." Admiral Vextar stared at the hole in his ship. The most advanced defensive systems in the galaxy had been defeated by what amounted to a thrown rock. "How did you penetrate our shields?" "What shields?" This came from Engineer Da-Un on Seoul's Pride. "We just saw a lot of pretty lights. Were those supposed to stop solid objects?" "They stop energy weapons." "Oh well, that makes sense," said Captain Taemin. "Energy can be redirected, dispersed, absorbed, but mass is mass and velocity is velocity. Physics doesn't really care about force fields." On Busan Thunder, Sujin was practically vibrating with excitement as she studied the sensor readings. "This is fascinating. Their defensive systems are optimized for energy-based attacks. They've created these beautiful electromagnetic barriers that can handle incredible energy loads." "But," prompted Captain Minho, "but they're useless against kinetic weapons. It's like building the perfect umbrella and then being surprised when someone throws a baseball at you." Tactical Officer Wu Jin nodded. "Their whole military doctrine seems based on energy warfare. Ships with energy shields fighting with energy. Weapons. When everyone plays by the same rules, the rules make sense." "What happens when someone doesn't play by those rules?" asked Yunji. "This," said Captain Minho, gesturing at the hole in the Imperial flagship. Admiral Vexitar was receiving damage reports from across his ship. The kinetic projectile had caused minimal actual damage, just a clean hole, but the psychological impact was enormous. His crew was staring at displays that showed their most advanced defenses being defeated by Stone Age technology. "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly, "our shields are designed to handle plasma, lasers, particle beams, antimatter charges. They can absorb and redirect incredible amounts of energy. But they don't interact with simple matter at all. A rock thrown hard enough would go right through them." Vextar looked at the human ships on his display. They still showed no energy shields, no advanced weapons, no exotic technology. Just metal hulls and basic drives. Yet they had just demonstrated that his most advanced warship was essentially defenseless against their primitive weapons. "Sir," came Captain Dongwu's voice from Incheon Surprise, "we don't want any trouble. We're just travelers trying to get from point A to point B, but if you're going to keep shooting at us, we might have to defend ourselves." "That was defending yourselves?" Vextar asked. "That was asking politely," Dongwu replied. "We'd prefer not to escalate this situation." The Admiral stared at the hole in his ship, then at the human vessels that had made it. 3 small ships with primitive technology had just proven that the most powerful fleet in this sector was built on a fundamental flaw. Their entire military advantage was based on fighting enemies who used the same technology they did. "What if they use different technology?" he whispered. His tactical officer heard him. "Then, Admiral, we might be in serious trouble." From the human ships came more cheerful chatter as the crews discussed the interesting properties of Imperial shield technology and debated whether their demonstration had been too aggressive for a first meeting. Admiral Vextar stared at the hole in his flagship and made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his career. Instead of reconsidering his approach, he decided the humans had been lucky. 3 primitive ships could not possibly stand against the full might of the Empire. "Send a priority signal to Battle Group 7, he commanded. "Request immediate assistance, full combat deployment." His communications officer hesitated. "Admiral, that's 12 additional ships including the battlecruiser Stellar Wrath." "I'm aware of our fleet composition," Vextar snapped. "These humans have some kind of trick weapon. Superior numbers will compensate." 20 minutes later, space around the human ships filled with Imperial vessels. The massive battlecruiser Stellar Wrath emerged from hyperspace, followed by 11 escort ships. Each vessel bristled with weapons and energy shields, their hulls gleaming with the advanced alloys that marked Imperial technology. On Sol's Pride, the crew watched the new arrivals with interest. "That's a lot of ships," observed Navigator Boram. "Very impressive," agreed Captain Taeman. "They really commit to making a statement." Engineer Da-Un was studying the energy readings. "Look at the power output on that big one. They could probably run a small city with those reactors. Probably cost more than our entire planet's budget," added Ji-Hoon. The Imperial demonstration was interrupted by a new arrival on the human side. A cargo hauler that looked even less military than the other human ships dropped out of hyperspace. Its hull was dented and patched, painted in faded colors that suggested it had seen better decades. "This is Captain Dongwu of Incheon Surprise," came a relaxed voice. "Looks like we've got quite a party starting here." Admiral Vextar studied the new ship. It appeared to be a civilian vessel, possibly a merchant trader. "Human vessel, you are interfering with Imperial military operations. Withdraw immediately." "Actually, Admiral, I'm here for the military operations," Dongwu replied cheerfully. "My friends called for backup, so here I am." "That is your backup?" Vextar couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. "Well, part of it. Yejin and Chanho are bringing the party supplies, but they're still a few hours out." On the Imperial Bridge, officers exchanged glances. The humans were treating a confrontation with Battle Group 7 like they were planning a social gathering. "Admiral," said the captain of Stellar Wrath over the fleet channel, "request permission to demonstrate proper Imperial firepower." "Granted. Show these primitives what happens when they challenge the Empire." The Imperial fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and gravitic torpedoes filled space between the fleets. The combined firepower could have destroyed a small moon. Energy readings spiked off the scales as 15 Imperial warships unleashed everything they had. The human response was not what anyone expected. On Sol's Pride, pilot Kyung-soo suddenly came alive. "Oh, this is fun," he shouted, throwing the ship into a wild corkscrew that took them between two plasma bolts. Bow ram, call out the close ones. Plasma bolt, starboard, 3 seconds. Bow ram called out like she was calling plays in a game. Got it. Kyung-soo rolled the ship 90 degrees, letting the bolt pass underneath them. How was that one? Clean miss. 2 points, shouted co-pilot Haiwan. The other human ships were dancing through the Imperial barrage with the same casual competence. Busan Thunder slipped between a spread of missiles like it was threading a needle, while Incheon Surprise somehow managed to avoid 3 different weapon systems while appearing to barely change course. How are they doing that? Demanded the captain of Stellar Wrath. Admiral Vextar was asking himself the same question. Imperial tactical doctrine was based on overwhelming firepower and advanced targeting systems. Ships were supposed to use energy shields and armor to absorb damage while trading shots with enemy vessels. The humans weren't trading shots. They were avoiding everything. Their maneuvers make no tactical sense, reported his tactical officer. They're not following any doctrine in our database. Because they're not using doctrine, said Captain Minho's voice over the communications channel. We're just not getting hit. From Seoul's Pride, Kyung-soo was whooping with joy. This is better than the simulator. Hey Wan, mark that near miss. 15. Meters port side, that's your best one yet. Sir, came Engineer Daeun's voice. Should we start shooting back? They seem to be putting a lot of effort into this. Captain Taemin considered this. Well, it would be rude not to participate. Hyunwoo, pick something non-essential and put a hole in it. Weapons Officer Hyunwoo studied the Imperial formation. How about that ship with all the extra antennas? Looks like a command vessel. Sounds good. Try not to hit anything important. A simple kinetic round launched from Seoul's Pride. Like the previous shot, it was just a piece of tungsten moving very fast with basic guidance. It struck the Imperial command ship's communications array, removing it completely. Oops, said Hyunwoo. Was that important? The Imperial formation began to show signs of confusion as ships lost contact with their command structure. Without central coordination, their targeting became less effective. Busan Thunder joined the return fire. Soo-jin had rigged up what she called an interesting experiment, a modified mining laser that could punch through Imperial armor like it was made of paper. The theory is simple, she explained to anyone listening. Their armor is designed to disperse energy weapons, but if you focus enough energy into a small enough point, the laser carved a neat line across the hull of an Imperial destroyer, causing spectacular secondary explosions as it hit something volatile inside. From Incheon Surprise, Captain Dongwoo launched what the Imperial sensors identified as a torpedo. They prepared point defense systems and evasive maneuvers. It turned out to be a shipping container full of ball bearings, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The result was spectacular. The Imperial ships, designed to handle single, large impacts or energy weapons, had no defense against thousands of small projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Their shields, optimized for energy absorption, simply ignored the kinetic impacts. Their armor, designed to handle plasma and lasers, was shredded by the high-velocity impacts. 3 Imperial ships were disabled in seconds. What was that? Admiral, Vextar demanded. Industrial accident. Captain Dongwoo replied apologetically. Sometimes cargo containers come loose during combat maneuvers. Sorry about that. On the Imperial flagship, damage reports were coming in from across the fleet. Ships with shields rated to stop planet-killing weapons were being disabled by what amounted to thrown rocks and industrial equipment. Admiral, his tactical officer said quietly, we're not equipped for this kind of warfare. What do you mean? Our weapons are designed to penetrate energy shields and advanced armor. Their ships don't have energy shields or advanced armor. Our defenses are designed to stop energy weapons and guided missiles. They're using kinetic projectiles and industrial equipment. Vextar stared at his displays. His fleet was being defeated by opponents who treated combat like a recreational activity and used garbage as ammunition. Sir, came a transmission from Captain Minho. We really don't want to hurt anyone. Could we maybe discuss this instead of shooting at each other? Our cook makes excellent soup and we've got plenty for everyone. Admiral Vextar looked at his damaged fleet, then at the human ships that continued to dodge Imperial weapons while chatting about lunch plans. For the first time in his military career, he was beginning to think he might be outmatched. The arrival changed everything. Space rippled as something massive dropped out of hyperspace. The new ship was unlike anything the Zephyrian Empire had ever seen. Where Imperial vessels were sleek and elegant, this newcomer was purely functional. Its hull was dark gray metal, covered with sensors, weapon mounts, and what looked like repair patches. It was easily twice the size of the Stellar Wrath and carried itself with the confidence of a ship that had seen real combat. "This is Captain Insu of the Guangzhou Wanderer," came a calm voice. "Sorry we're late. Traffic was terrible." Admiral Vextar stared at his displays. The new human ship showed the same primitive technology as the others. No energy shields, basic fusion drives, simple metal construction. But its sheer size and the casual way it had appeared in the middle of a battle zone suggested capabilities his fleet had seriously underestimated. "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, "I'm reading massive power signatures from the new vessel. Multiple reactor cores, heavy industrial equipment, and..." He paused, checking his readings again. "What appears to be a manufacturing facility." "Human vessel," Vextar transmitted. "You are interfering with Imperial military operations." "Actually, Admiral," Captain Insu replied, "you folks seem to be interfering with our patrol route, but that's okay. We're flexible." The Imperial fleet had been reduced to 9 operational ships. 3 were heavily damaged, 2 had lost their main weapons, and all of them were showing the effects of trying to fight an enemy their technology wasn't designed to handle. "Admiral," came a transmission from one of his destroyer captains. "Request permission to withdraw. Our shields are useless against their weapons, and our weapons can't hit them." Before Vextar could respond, Captain Insu opened a general channel. "You folks seem confused about how this works. Mind if we explain?" "Explain what?" Vextar asked, despite himself. "Combat doctrine. See, you've spent so long fighting enemies with the same technology that you've forgotten the basics. From the Guangzhou Wanderer, Engineer So Young's cheerful voice joined the conversation. "Your shields are really quite impressive. We've been studying them while you were shooting at our friends. The energy dispersion is elegant, and the power requirements must be enormous. Unfortunately," Captain Insu continued, "energy shields don't care about kinetic energy, and your armor is optimized against plasma and lasers. Terrible against good old-fashioned mass moving really, really fast." Admiral Vextar was beginning to understand just how badly he had miscalculated. "Are you saying your entire military doctrine is based on primitive weapons?" "Primitive?" Captain Tayman's voice carried amusement. "Admiral, we've been using kinetic weapons for thousands of years because they work. When you can accelerate a piece of metal to significant fractions of light speed, it doesn't matter how advanced your target's defenses are. Physics is physics. But energy weapons are more advanced. More complex, maybe," agreed Engineer Da-Yun from Soul's Pride. "But not necessarily better. A plasma bolt requires enormous amounts of energy, complex containment systems, and sophisticated targeting. A kinetic round requires a piece of metal and some velocity, which is cheaper to produce and maintain," added Captain Minho. The Imperial bridge was silent as officers considered this. Their entire fleet represented the pinnacle of galactic technology, built at enormous cost over decades of research and development. The human ships looked like they had been built in ordinary shipyards using materials anyone could buy. "But your ships are so primitive," Vextar protested. "Simple," corrected Captain Insu. "There's a difference. Primitive suggests we don't know better. Simple means we've learned what works." From the Guangzhou Wanderer, Tactical Officer Jae Sung's voice joined the discussion. "Admiral, would you prefer the kinetic option or the nuclear option for ending this engagement? I can provide either, but the nuclear option involves much prettier explosions." "Nuclear?" Vextar's voice cracked slightly. "Oh, yes," said Engineer Myung from the same ship. "We've got some lovely fusion warheads. Very clean, very efficient. Though I suppose at these ranges the electromagnetic pulse might interfere with your electronics." Admiral Vextar looked at his fleet status display. 9 ships against 4. Humans, and somehow he was certain his forces were outmatched. How many ships do you have? In this system? Just these 4, Captain Insu replied. Though I should mention that Ye Jin and Chan Ho are bringing the party supplies. They should be here soon. What kind of party supplies? The Daigu's hammer. And her escort group. 12 ships total. They were running a training exercise when we called for backup. As if summoned by his words, space began to ripple again. This time, 13 ships appeared in formation. The lead vessel was enormous, easily 4 times the size of the Imperial flagship. Like the other human ships, it showed no energy shields or exotic technology. Unlike the others, it bristled with weapon mounts and carried itself with the unmistakable presence of a true warship. "This is Captain Ye Jin of the Daigu's Hammer," came a professional voice. "Captain Insu, what's the situation?" "Just a misunderstanding, Ye Jin. Our Imperial friends here seem to think primitive technology can't be effective." "Ah," said Captain Ye Jin. "Would you like us to demonstrate otherwise?" Admiral Vextar stared at the human fleet. 21 ships total, ranging from patrol vessels to what was obviously a dreadnought. All of them using technology his empire considered obsolete. All of them operated by crews who treated warfare like an interesting technical problem. "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly, "I recommend we request negotiations. We cannot surrender to primitives. With respect, sir, they're not primitives. They're specialists, and we're not equipped to fight specialists in kinetic warfare." "Captain," Yejin's voice cut through the Imperial discussion. "Admiral Vextar, we'd like to make a proposal. Instead of continuing this engagement, which seems to be going poorly for your forces, why don't we discuss terms?" "Terms?" Vextar asked. "Simple ones. You continue with whatever you were doing before we met, and we continue with our patrol. Space is big enough for everyone. You're not demanding our surrender? Why would we?" This came from Captain Chan Ho of one of the escort ships. "We're not interested in conquering anything. Too much paperwork. But we fired on you first." "Mistakes happen," said Captain Taman. "No one was seriously hurt. Well, except for some holes in your ships, but those can be patched." Admiral Vexitar looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at displays showing Imperial ships with holes punched through them by primitive weapons, while the humans discussed repairs like they were talking about fixing a broken window. "You would just let us go?" "Sure," said Captain Insu. "Though we'd be happy to discuss trade agreements if you're interested. You've got some fascinating technology there, and we've got materials science that might interest you." For the first time in his career, Admiral Vextar was completely out of his depth. The humans had defeated his fleet using technology from their species' dark ages, then offered to help repair the damage. They treated interstellar warfare like a minor inconvenience and diplomacy like a business meeting. "I need to consult with my superiors," he managed. "Take your time," Captain Yejin replied. "We'll be here." 3 hours later, Admiral Vextar received new orders from Imperial Command. After reviewing his battle reports and sensor data, the Empire's leadership had reached the same conclusion he had. Continuing this engagement would be a disaster. "Admiral," came the voice of Imperial High Command, "you are authorized to negotiate a ceasefire. Do not, under any circumstances, escalate further." Vextar activated the general communication channel. "Human vessels, this is Admiral Vextar, the Zephyrian. Empire is prepared to discuss terms for ending hostilities." "Excellent," came Captain Taman's cheerful response. "Captain Yejin, want to handle the formal stuff? You're better at that than I am." "I'd be happy to," Captain Yejin replied. "Admiral, shall we meet aboard your ship or ours?" Vextar hesitated. Protocol suggested that the losing side should come to the victor's vessel, but these humans seem to operate by their own rules. "Your ship would be acceptable." "Perfect. Dock with the Daigu's hammer whenever you're ready. Fair warning. Our cook is making lunch, so come hungry." 2 hours later, Admiral Vextar found himself in the strangest diplomatic meeting of his career. The human dreadnought's conference room looked more like a family dining room than a military facility. The table was set with actual plates and utensils, and the smell of cooking food filled the air. Captain Yejin greeted him at the airlock, wearing a uniform that looked comfortable rather than formal. "Welcome aboard, Admiral. I hope you don't mind if we eat while we talk. Erin gets upset if her food gets cold." The human delegation consisted of the 4 ship captains and a woman introduced as Young Min, the diplomatic officer. Her previous job, she mentioned casually, had been running a food truck in Seoul. "So," Jungmin said as plates of Korean barbecue were distributed, "what exactly does the Empire want from this encounter?" Vextar looked around the room. The humans were treating a formal diplomatic negotiation like a family dinner. Captain Insu was explaining the seasoning in the meat to one of the Imperial officers, while Captain Taemin discussed local star charts with another. "Traditionally," Vextar said carefully, "first contact with the Empire involves territorial claims, tribute arrangements, or subjugation terms." "Okay," Jungmin nodded. "But what do you actually want? Not what you traditionally do, but what would make you happy with this outcome?" The question caught Vextar off guard. In his entire military career, no one had ever asked what would make him happy. We need to ensure the security of Imperial space," he said finally. "That makes sense," Captain Yejin agreed. "No one wants pirates or hostile fleets in their territory. How can we help with that?" "Help? Sure, we're just passing through. Anyway, if there are specific routes you'd prefer us to use or protocols you'd like us to follow, we're happy to cooperate." Vextar stared at her. "You're offering to help us secure our own territory? Why not? We don't want trouble anymore. Then you do." The negotiations continued over several courses of food. The humans proposed a simple arrangement. They would register their patrol routes with Imperial authorities, share information about any unusual activity they encountered, and provide technical assistance if needed. "Technical assistance?" Vexitar asked. Captain Insu grinned. "Your ships are impressive, Admiral, but they're not designed for the kind of threats you might actually face. Pirates, for instance, probably don't use plasma cannons and energy shields. What do they use? Cheap weapons, dirty tactics, and surprise attacks. Your ships are built to fight other Imperial vessels in formal engagements. But real threats don't follow formal rules." Engineer So Young pulled out a tablet and showed Vextar some technical diagrams. "We could help you design supplementary defensive systems. Simple kinetic barriers, basic projectile weapons, that sort of thing. Nothing fancy, just practical additions to handle unconventional threats." "You would share your technology?" "Some of it," Captain Yejin confirmed. "The basics, anyway. In exchange, we'd like to study some of your energy manipulation systems. That plasma containment technology is really elegant." Admiral Vextar found himself negotiating the strangest treaty in Imperial history. Instead of conquest or surrender, it was a trade agreement. Instead of tribute or territorial concessions, it involved technical cooperation and information sharing. The humans insisted on including cultural exchange provisions. "Food, music, art, that sort of thing," Youngmin explained. "It's amazing what you can learn about people by sharing a meal with them." "This is highly irregular," Vextar protested. "Best kind of regular there is," said Captain Chan Ho, raising his glass. "To irregular solutions for irregular problems." The final ceremony took place on the bridge of the Daegu's Hammer. The treaty signing was interrupted by the crew's daily karaoke session, which had apparently been scheduled months in advance and couldn't be moved. "Don't mind us," Captain Taemin told the Imperial delegation as crew members took turns singing. "This is Hyojin's birthday, and she's been practicing that song for weeks." Vextar watched a human engineer attempt to sing traditional songs while her crewmates cheered and laughed. On the main screen, his damaged fleet was being assisted by human repair vessels. Crews from both sides worked together to patch holes and replace damaged components, sharing tools and techniques with the casual efficiency of people who enjoyed their work. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "Imperial Command is requesting a full report on the negotiations." Vextar looked around the human bridge. Captain Yejin was explaining local traffic control procedures to his tactical officer. Engineer Erin was teaching several Imperial crew members how to make proper kimchi. Navigator Sang-woo was attempting to explain the concept of work-life balance to a species that had militarized their entire civilization. Tell Imperial Command, Vextar said slowly, that we have encountered a species that treats warfare as a mild inconvenience and diplomacy, as an excuse for a dinner party. Sir? Tell them we recommend avoiding further conflict and investing heavily in kinetic shielding technology. And the overall assessment? Vextar watched Hyojin finish her song to enthusiastic applause from both human and Imperial crew members. Tell them, he said, that we have a lot to learn. The last transmission the Zephyrians intercepted as they departed was a discussion about the next cultural exchange. The humans were planning to teach Imperial crews how to make proper barbecue, while the Imperials offered to share their knowledge of advanced metallurgy. Next time we meet, Captain Taman transmitted, bring some of those energy crystals your ships use. Our engineers are dying to study them. And tell your cooks about the spice blends we shared, added Aaron. Food tastes better when you put some thought into it. Admiral Vextar's final log entry read, first contact with human species resulted in technical cooperation agreement and cultural exchange protocols. Humans appear to possess advanced materials science and unconventional tactical doctrine. Recommend establishing permanent diplomatic relations and upgrading fleet defensive systems to handle kinetic weapons. He paused, then added, also recommend improving fleet catering services. Human food is surprisingly good. As the Imperial ships departed for home, the human patrol resumed its course. On the bridge of Soul's Pride, Captain Taman settled into his chair and smiled. Well, that was interesting, he said. Ji-hoon, make a note for the next patrol briefing. When meeting new species, pack extra food. Diplomacy works better when everyone's had a good meal. Yes, sir, Ji-hoon replied. Anything else? Yeah. Next time someone demands our surrender, ask them if they want to try our cook's soup first. You'd be amazed how much more reasonable people become after a bowl of good soup. In the distance, the Imperial fleet continued its journey home, carrying with them the knowledge that the galaxy was much larger and more interesting than they had ever imagined.